So now you're on the air.
So, Anu.
Hi, Addie. Hi.
Okay. So you are to determine whether or not these are oxidation reduction reactions, first of all. And I really didn't leave a space for that. So that should actually be one of your issues. And then you have to identify the oxidizing agent, reducing agent, substance being oxidized, substance being reduced. In your notes, go find those 4 definitions right now.
Well, I used it, I went to the back of the book and I think completely wrong.
We need to call you back to school too.
Hi.
Because I missed that quiz.
Or makes sense.
Or it makes sense.
What?
Yeah.
Did she make it for this chapter?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
Why would
Okay,
now?
back to chemistry. You got your 4 definitions in front of you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Before you do anything, you have to get charges. So hydrogen, we just said, is always a +1. Okay, so what does that make carbon here? Carbon's a -4. O2, what is its charge? 0. Okay, the oxygen here is -2, so what's the carbon? +4. Oxygen and H2O is -2, hydrogen is +1. So what you have changing is carbon is going from a -4 to a +4. And one of the things you'll notice is I don't care about the other elements. I just care about what's changing. And oxygen is going from a 0 to a -2. Okay? So, from these, okay, how do you go from -4 to +4? What do you have to do?
Lose 4 electrons.
But you have to lose 8 electrons. You have to lose. This is losing. Okay? And how do I go from a 0 to a -2? You have to gain 2 electrons. Okay? So really, in order to solve these problems, I probably should have left more room because this is what you need to do. So then once we do this, losing electrons on the top line, is that oxidation or reduction? Leo, the line goes Gur. Leo, loss of electrons is oxidation. So this is oxidation. Gur, gain of electrons is reduction. So this is reduction. Okay, so let's do the easy ones first. Okay, so this means that this, which is coming from here, is it oxidized or reduced? It's oxidized, okay? So CH4 should be placed in oxidized.
So we can just have C.
We can just have C. Because C is really the element that's doing it. That's why your textbook had just C. Okay? What's reduced? O2. So this is in the reduced. Okay? Now, for the oxidizing agent, okay, what does the oxidizing agent mean? It's the one that is being reduced. So this is the oxidizing agent. Because that is what is being reduced. And the reducing agent, okay, is CH4. So this right here, and the reason why it is CH4 is that is the agent. That's the substance that's doing the reducing. So that is the reducing agent. Make sense?
Got it.
Okay. Let's go to the next one. Okay. On the next one, okay, let's get our charges first. So what is the charge of zinc? Okay. What is the charge of hydrogen? +1. What's the charge of chlorine? Okay, charge of zinc now. Charge of chlorine. Charge of hydrogen. 0. Okay, so the two that have changed, zinc has gone from 0 to a +2 So where do those 2 electrons go? So we lost 2 electrons, so that's oxidation, right? And then hydrogen went from a +1 to a 0. Well, how do you go from +1 to 0? You have to gain 1 electron. So this is reduction. So let's do the oxidized and reduced. What's oxidized? Zinc is oxidized. What's reduced? Hydrogen is reduced. Okay, now, what is the oxidizing agent?
HCl.
Yes, this is the oxidizing agent. OA, oxidizing agent. And what is the reducing agent? Zinc. Because it's a substance that's oxidized. So does it help you when you start writing out the equations? Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
You suppose. Okay. All right, so look at this one. Okay, let's get our charges. So oxygen's easy, that's -2. So if oxygen's -2, what's the chromium?
Well, you gotta
+7.
+7?
Now what's the 2 negative? That
Yeah.
That means like it's a.
Oh, so that means that's the chromium charge plus the oxygen charge has to equal to -2.
Yeah.
So if oxygen's -2, that's a -14. So what's chromium got to be? 6, because you got to have a 12 here, but you have 2 of them, so that's got to be a +6. Okay? So, okay, so I have OH, that's a -1. What charge is hydrogen here? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't trick you by saying something else. How do you know it's +1 for sure?
Because it's always is, unless it's a metal and oxygen's not.
You did listen. Perfect.
I got
So-
so, on today.
So what's oxygen? -2? Okay, so now we go to this oxygen we know is -2. What's the chromium in this one?
3. +3. +3.
+6.
Those metals don't change their charges, do they?
They can,
Oh, I was thinking 2 times 3.
but in this case it's not. Oxygen's -2 and hydrogen is +1. So what changed?
There's no reduction.
So this is not an oxidation reduction, therefore you cannot fill in any blanks. Okay? But you should make a note, no oxidation reduction. Write that in. Okay? All right, O3, what is that? Okay, what is O3, by the way?
Ozone.
It is ozone.
12.
Ozone, it's in our ozone layer. That's what's protecting the Earth. O3. Okay? What is the oxygen here? So what's the nitrogen? +2. So what's the oxygen here? 0. What is the oxygen here? What's the nitrogen? +4. Oh, so nitrogen went from a +2 to a +4. How do you do that?
Lose 2.
And losing 2 electrons goes over on this side. And then now you have a weird thing, because now you have an oxygen, which is an O3, going to an oxygen, which is in -2 charge. How do you do that?
Reduction.
You add 2 electrons.
So this gains 2 electrons, correct?
Yes.
Now, at this point, we're not balancing these, so I'm not going to worry about anything, because all I need to figure out is, do I have oxidation reduction? Okay, so I'm not worried about them being balanced. There are other issues with this one if we go to balancing it, okay? So, right now we know that this is oxidized, this is reduced. Okay, so on letter D, I'm always doing the oxidized first. So what is oxidized? So N and NO, right? What's reduced?
Oh.
O3, right?
So, like, actually, put that.
Yes, you actually should put O3.
What about the other one?
That's not the one that's reduced. This is the one that's being reduced. So O3 is being reduced. So, what is the oxidizing agent? O3. Okay, is the oxidizing agent. What is the reducing agent? NO. NO. Now it gets even more interesting.
What? I saw the same stuff.
What's the name of H2O2?
Hydrogen peroxide.
Perfect. Okay. What's the charge of hydrogen here? What's the charge of oxygen? -1. There's oxygen's exception, correct? Okay. Oxygen here is -2. Hydrogen is +1. What's oxygen here? 0. Okay. So the hydrogen doesn't change, does it? No. So what changes is the O2, that is a -1 charge, goes to an O, which is a -2 charge, and the O, and I'm just going to leave this as H2O2. H2O2, that is a -1 charge here, goes to O2, which is a 0 charge. Now, I love that as H2O2, but I'm really just looking at the oxygens. So, how does this oxygen go from a -1 to a -2?
It goes on the list.
It gained 1 electron. How does this oxygen go from a -1 to a 0? It had to lose 1 electron. So, this is reduction. This one is oxidation. So, going back to what is oxidized, what's oxidized?
O2.
Okay, so your textbook had this, H2O2, correct? Have you looked at it? What's reduced? H2O2. What's the oxidizing agent? H2O2. What's the reducing agent?
O.
H2O2.
Because it oxidizes itself.
Yes.
Which is why you don't have the high concentrations. Because it
Can you say that again?
Basically, the answer to every single one of them is H2O2.
Every single one.
Yep. H2O2 is the oxidizing agent. It's the reducing agent. This gets into a reaction that we'll talk about later, which is a spontaneous reaction. Okay? This happens on its own. So have you ever had hydrogen peroxide in your house? Okay? Do you have hydrogen peroxide? Do you know it goes bad?
Yes. With all of the hydrogen.
This reaction is actually happening in your hydrogen peroxide bottle. Do you know why your hydrogen peroxide bottle is brown?
So the sunlight can get in.
Because sunlight speeds up this process. That's why it's brown. So, your hydrogen peroxide, if you have hydrogen peroxide that's like 5 years old, it's water by now. It's probably not much for hydrogen peroxide. So,
Yeah.
next one.
One time, my sister's dog ate some brownies. We had to make her drink them.
Jay Brownie's.
All right, what are our charges here? What's the charge of this copper?
I don't have that.
+1. What's the charge of chlorine? -1. What's the charge of the copper in here?
+2.
This chlorine? -1. Copper here?
0.
0. So the chlorine's not doing anything, is it? So the copper here is going from a +1 to a +2, and the copper is going from a +1 to a 0. How do you get copper to go from a +1 to a +2? Lose 1 electron. Okay? How do you get copper to go from a +1 to a 0? Gain 1 electron. So losing, this is the oxidation. This is the reduction. So, what substance is oxidized? CuCl is oxidized. What's reduced? CuCl. What substance is the oxidizing agent? CuCl. What's the reducing agent? There you go. Does this make life better?